Good evening, traders. This is CloudChartist with your weekly Ichimoku chart wrap up for the week ending June 24th. This is June 26th, Sunday night. I unfortunately got started a little bit late on my video making, so the new candles have already opened. So as I'm going over the analysis, please make note that I'm talking about the prior week's candle in my analysis, which in this ES chart is this big one, obviously. This is the new one that just opened up and is forming and has gap down. So I might make mention of the new candle, but my primary analysis is for last week's candle. So anyway, looking at the ES, we see that last week we did manage to hold the top of the cloud here. The cloud being located at 20, let's see, I believe 2012.69 is the level of the cloud, and so the cloud is still at that level on this week's candle, although you notice if I was to zoom in up close, you see that the cloud starts sloping downwards right in the middle of this new candle that's opened up. So technically we still have a support level at the top of the cloud here, but we are currently under it. If we do continue to trade lower, we could trade all the way down to the bottom of the cloud, which is located at 1982.50. And then if we do trade higher, we're going to have resistance at the Tenkan-sen up here at 2059.38. So that's the kind of range that we're looking at here. If we, for some reason, sell below the bottom of the cloud, we do have support at the Kijun-sen, offered by the Kijun-sen, currently at 1961.13. So that's about it for the ES. We're still in a downtrend. Last week's candle did put in an outside candle, as it put in a much higher high and then a much lower low than the prior week. But the prior week was already in a downtrend, so we just continued the downtrend with the outside candle not changing the trend. If we look into the future, we see that we do have a lower cloud, and going into later in July and August, we have a flat lower cloud, and the top of the cloud throughout July and August is at 1968.25. So it's possible that we could come down there, gravitating towards the flat cloud here. Just some possible scenario. If you want to be bullish the market, we need to get back above the Tenkan-sen, which is at 2059.38. So technically, last week we were still bullish as we had put in a close above the cloud. So we're kind of violating that bullishness and heading into the neutral zone with the new candle that's currently being created. Let's look at the TF, the Russell. We see the Russell had tested several weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, had tested above the cloud briefly and then closed below the cloud, and I suggested that it would probably hug the contour of the cloud, and that's exactly what's going on. Last week's candle came up and almost tested the top of the cloud, but then sold down and lost the support of the Tenkan-sen, came down further, but it did put in a big sort of spinning top doji type candle, long-legged spinning top doji, the equidistant top and bottom tails on last week's candle. So the fact that we closed under the cloud means that the Russell is bearish on the weekly time frame. The fact that we are between the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen outlines a pretty nice range of potential price action. So we are between 1135.70 resistance to the upside and 1063.30 support to the downside. As the coming weeks, the next couple of weeks come into play, we're going to need to interact with the cloud. So we could either, if you want to be bullish, this area of the cloud is pretty thin, so that wouldn't be a bad area to break through and continue on sideways above the next coming up cloud. But we really want to see price action above the Tenkan-sen for that to happen, which is currently at 1135.70. Otherwise, we could continue to hold the contour of the cloud and perhaps even go under it and then interact with the Kijun-sen down below. But we'll see what happens. Technically, the Russell is bearish at this point on the weekly time frame. Let's look at the Nasdaq. Nasdaq came up and tested above the cloud temporarily last week, and then put in a close not only below the cloud but also below the Kijun-sen, so bearish in all ways Ichimoku. And the new candle you see has opened up below the it opened up inside the Kijun-sen, but then is now currently trading below the Kijun-sen. It's possible that we could continue to see selling until the Chikou, this red line over here representing price action, time shifted 26 periods into the past, so 26 weeks into the past, comes down and tests the bottom of the cloud right here. And that level is around the 41.1975 level. So that's a fair amount lower. You can see, if you are looking at where this line is horizontally, that there's a prior support in that area. This candle here bounced off that area. These candles here all bounced off that area after testing lower. If we do want to get back into neutral territory on the Nasdaq, we need to get back into the cloud, and the cloud starts at 43.2388 is the bottom level of the cloud, which should act as resistance. Well, let's move on to the Dow. Dow, looking much like the ES, is headed for potentially testing the top of the cloud here. It did not test it last week. So technically the Dow is still bullish in Ichimoku terms, although it's not fully bullish because it is under the Tenkan-sen, but it is above the cloud, so it is bullish. The Chikou is in the middle of this cloud, so the Chikou is in neutral territory, and it's important for the Chikou to hold the cloud over here. And the bottom of the cloud over here is located at 17,052, which is a similar level to the top of this cloud over here. As we move forward into time, we do see that we have a sloping cloud and then a flat cloud ahead in the future. Very thin clouds suggest a tight range of price action. Let's look at crude. So crude is inside the cloud currently, which is neutral. If we're looking at last week's candle, we noticed that it did manage to hold the Tenkan-sen inside the cloud. So although it did close in neutral territory, it did hold the Tenkan-sen. Currently, the new candle that's forming is below the Tenkan-sen, so we'll see if it holds that important Tenkan-sen level of 47.35. If it does, then we have the resistance at the top of the cloud at 48.56 above that. We do have a sloping down cloud, so if price gets out of the cloud, in the coming weeks, it could be follow the contours of the outside of the cloud and move lower. But we'll see what happens. We'll see where this week's candle closes. Whether it closes above the Tenkan-sen is very important now, and whether it closes above the cloud. If it does not close above the Tenkan-sen, then we have this whole range between the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen. We could find cloud support when it comes to the edge of the very cloud on this candle. It's about 43 even. So we'll see what that comes to. There's also this horizontal support resistance level that's real clear at 43.68. All right, let's move on to some metals. Let's look at gold. Pardon me. We see that gold is in an uptrend and is above the cloud, so bullish in Ichimoku terms. If we do get a retest lower of the flat Tenkan-sen, that's at 1282.10. So that is setting up to be a potential pullback to breakout buy pattern. A pullback to breakout buy pattern is signified by or symbolized by a pullback to the Tenkan-sen that you can then buy, and then price action goes higher. But this, we're not quite there yet. If it even happens to set up that way. But gold is definitely bullish at the moment on the weekly time frame. Let's look at silver. So silver has been in the uptrend, and last week's candle tested quite high up at 1837, and then closed significantly lower back at 1779 thereabouts. Let's see, 1777, and held the Tenkan-sen all the while. So currently, basically, silver is sort of bull flagging above the cloud. We do have the Chikou coming into the top of the cloud resistance area here, and you see that it was previously resisted at this level as well on a closing basis. So we could see price rejected here again and then see some further selling, perhaps back down to the Tenkan-sen. That would then be buyable as long as it held, and that level is at 1710. Let's look at some bonds. Let's look at the 30-year Treasury bond. You know, we did break out of this rectangular consolidation zone, and last week put in a high, a spike high, and but still continued to hold the trend higher above the Tenkan-sen. So as long as it holds above the Tenkan-sen, it's fully bullish in Ichimoku terms, and it does have a nice supportive rising cloud into the future to support its further bullish activity. The RSI is getting close to overbought here short term, so keep an eye on that, although I gotta say that RSI and bonds don't mean a lot to each other. Let's look at the 10-year, looking similar to the 30-year. We are sort of bull flagging above the Tenkan-sen. The Tenkan-sen's down here at 131.22. So if we do get a pullback lower, I would look at this prior close level here at 132.19 as potentially prior resistance turn support. So check out that level if we were to reverse and sell down lower. And then we do have you know, the Tenkan-sen supporting down below, but fully bullish for ZN. Let's look at the dollar. Dollar made a huge move higher after the Brexit scenario caused the cable to sell off. Had a $2 move higher thereabouts on the dollar. So the dollar is last week closed inside the cloud, so neutral, after being the prior week being outside the cloud, bearish. And the new candle is inside the cloud as well, so also neutral, and the new candle is above the Kijun-sen also, whereas last week's candle was just barely sneaking into the cloud here. So the dollar looks very neutral. If the Chikou comes up to the Kijun-sen here, we could find resistance for the dollar that way at 96.56. So keep an eye on that potential resistance level if we do get a move higher on the dollar. Let's just take a quick look at corn, maybe symbolize the commodity space in one chart. Corn had a very nasty sell-off last week and ended up closing below the cloud. So we were in a bullish, excited burst above the cloud here, and then basically a complete reversal of trend and a loss of the Tenkan-sen and the Kijun-sen and the cloud. So very bearish for corn at the moment. The only saving grace is you see the Chikou is coming into support of the cloud. The cloud is at a twist area, so that's not particularly supportive area for the Chikou to find support, but it's possible that it could indeed just find support in this general vicinity and then get a bounce higher. So we shall see. If we do get a bounce higher, look at that 393.25 level as potential resistance, and the top of the cloud at 400.75, and then the Tenkan-sen above that at 403.63. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for watching, and if you're interested in learning Ichimoku, do check out my website, CloudChartist.com. I do teach students how to learn Ichimoku and trade live futures while doing so. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to hit me up on Twitter, leave a comment on my YouTube page, or send me an email, cloudchartist@gmail.com. If you like the video, it would be great if you gave me a thumbs up. If you had any issues with the video, please let me know in the comment section on YouTube. Anyway, thanks again. Have a great rest of the weekend, and good luck trading next week.